Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Good morning, and welcome to another Good Morning Grief Devotion. It's your boy, Pastor Corey Allen Duncan Sr. So happy and excited to have this wonderful opportunity to come to you today to lead you in a very special way in today's Good Morning Grief Devotion. Hey, this is the daily grief devotion that is strategically designed to help you to navigate through your grief one day at a time. What is grief? I'm so glad you asked. Grief, my brothers and sisters, it is the natural, normal, and necessary response to loss, change, and transition that results in the expressions of feelings and emotions. That grief is what you feel on the inside. Mourning is what you reveal on the outside. Therefore, we don't suppress it, but we express it. We don't ignore it, but we explore it. We don't uh, conceal it, but we reveal it. We don't lock it up, but we let it out. And that's why we shout good morning, because morning is a good thing. And I'm so glad that you're here with us on today as we lead you today in a very special way in today's Good Morning Grief Devotion. Hey, today is day 280. We're going to talk about I nurture my inner self. How I nurture my inner self. Let's talk about it. My divine spark is the glow of my soul within me. It's the source of my meaning and purpose. When I nurture my inner self, I nurture my divine spark. When I carve out time in my days for reflection, daydreaming, imagination, and creation, I'm building my inner spark into a stronger flame. You want to build that inner spark on the inside into a stronger flame. When you're navigating through this grief season, y'all, oftentimes we find ourselves depleted mentally, emotionally, depleted spiritually, sometimes depleted physically, right? And one of the best things you can do, and this is across the board, one of the best things you can do is nurture yourself, right? You want to nurture yourself. Mentally, you want to nurture yourself. Emotionally, you want to nurture yourself. Physically, you want to nurture yourself. Spiritually, you want to nurture yourself. Navigating through a season of grief, nurturing is so very important, right? Getting the nutrients, right, that you need spiritually to make it, getting the nutrients mentally and even physically, it all's connected. It all plays a part. One of the best things you can do is nurture yourself, right? And oftentimes we're so preoccupied with grief that and I tell you all the time, there's still more chapters in the book of your life. There's still more miles to travel on the journey of your life. You got to understand that God is not through with you, that God is not done, right? And so it is important to nurture yourself because watch this, you got to nurture yourself for now and you got to nurture yourself for what's next. You nurture yourself for now because you got to survive this season. So you nurture yourself for now for what God is doing now and to navigate through the season of grief. You got to nurture yourself, but you also got to nurture yourself what's next. I'm thinking now of people in the hospital, oftentimes in comas. People who are in comas, right? Um, Ventilator, coma, whatever the case may be. It's amazing because they hook them up to a feeding tube because they know that they don't have the power, the ability to feed themselves, but they understand the power of they got to be nurtured. So we got to feed them. We're going to hook them up to this feeding tube to get these nutrients in them because even though they're in this state of this comatose state now, they may not be in this comatose state next. And so we got to make sure they get nutrients so that when they come out of this comatose state, they can continue to live because they've been nurtured. Thank you, Jesus, for the illustration. You got to understand that even if you're in this state now of grief, you still got to nurture yourself. You still got to nurture yourself now, right? Because God says it won't always be like this. So for where you're headed next, for what God is about to do next, you got to nurture yourself now, right? So that as you navigate through this season of grief, you'll still be able to be able to live. Thank you, Jesus, in the season that you're in next. So nurture yourself, nurture that divine spark, right? Carve out days for reflection and daydream and imagination and creation. Build your spark stronger into a stronger flame. Check this out. I am both an outward facing community member with a meaningful life of connection and an inward facing individual with a rich inner life. This is so very important. Outward, there's things that I got to do to serve people, to serve my community, to serve my church, to serve schools, to serve leaders, There's so much that I got to do outward. But y'all, just as much as I turn outward, guess what? I also turn inward. I turn inward for reflection, for meditation, for imagination. I turn inward to nurture and to strengthen myself so that I can continue to pour outward, right? I am both an outward facing community member with a meaningful life of connection and an inward facing individual with a rich inner life. I must nurture both aspects of myself to move toward healing and grief. You got to nurture both aspects, right, of yourself. The things that you do to pour out, but also the things that you do to reflect within. You have to nurture yourself if you're going to move forward in this thing of grief and healing. You got to nurture yourself. Here's the final thought, y'all. Putting my inner life first enables me to act meaningfully in the world. Putting my inner life first enables me to act meaningfully in the world. I'm thinking of a cell phone now. I've used this illustration before. That a cell phone must turn inward before it can be used outward. That if it's not inwardly charged, it will have no outwardly output, no outwardly production. If you don't, and I think everybody understands this because just about everybody on here has a cell phone. And if you don't charge it, there'll be no production. I want to tell you, you're like that cell phone. If you don't nurture yourself inward, if you don't charge yourself, if you don't take care of your inward charging or nurturing, you will have no outward output. You won't have no energy to serve. You won't have the strength to move on. You won't have anything because you failed to nurture yourself. Just like a physical body, don't eat long enough. You fail to nurture yourself. You won't have the strength or the energy to move, right? So it is important that in this season of grief, that you take the time to nurture yourself. Today is day 280. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. I appreciate y'all. I love y'all with the love of the Lord. I nurture my inner life.